Today, as you all know, we do have with us Congressman Erik Paulsenn. Erik Paulsenn represents Minnesota's 3rd District in the U.S. House of Representatives, a district made up of the western suburbs of Minneapolis. Paulsenn is serving his first term in the House of Representatives with a heavy focus on job creation, fiscal discipline, veterans issues, and constituent service. Congressman Paulsenn is a member of the House Financial Services Committee, where he has been a champion of fiscal responsibility with a focus on greater transparency and accountability of taxpayer dollars. He is a strong proponent of reducing America's dependence on foreign oil by supporting American energy sources, including nuclear energy, wind, solar, and exploration off the continental shelf. Prior to his election to Congress in 2008, Paulsenn served in the Minnesota House of Representatives from 1995 to 2008. He was the House Majority Leader from 2003 to 2007. He began his career in public service working as a legislative assistant in Washington for his predecessor, Congressman Jim Ramstad. Paulsenn later served as the director of Ramstad's Minnesota office. Congressman Paulsenn has 16 years of business experience, including working as a business analyst at Target Corporation. He received his BA in mathematics from St. Olaf College. He and his wife Kelly reside in Eden Prairie along with their 4 daughters, Cassie, Brianna, Taylor, and Liesel. Please join me in a very warm welcome for Congressman Paulsenn.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here, and actually a lot has happened in Washington since we last got together, so I want to make sure I leave some time for questions. It's great to be here with some familiar, friendly faces. Some of our state legislators, of course, and I know they are very busy at the state capitol right now. And I want to say it's also fun to be here with Twin West, because you are really one of the greatest chambers in the state, if not the country, in terms of your organization, your embodiment of being involved in the community. I want to thank, Bruce in terms of his leadership with the chamber in particular, and Steve Weiss with Cass Screw and the team that you have in terms of your leadership as chair of the board. And Danette, I know, is going to be stepping in as chair in the near future, and really does a great job leading these forums. And of course, you got great people like Judy and others who I think really put together a good team of respected positions that you bring to the state capitol, which is really, really important when the business community needs to speak out and share not only what's important to this region, to this area, but also to the larger small business community as a whole. And Twin West is certainly a big component of the Minnesota's Chamber's efforts, and I think very, very well respected. And Mike Lehman as well does a good job with the Government Affairs Committee. So thanks for all you do. It's fun to be here with you. And I'll just kind of, maybe before I kind of get into some of my specific issues in just a little bit, I know that the Twin West Chamber, for the most part, my experiences in observing or being participant coming to these legislative forums in the past is this is a group that doesn't like to just listen, but actually likes to be able to probe and ask questions. So I am going to leave an opportunity for you to ask questions. And just to kind of get you prepared, we got a copy of the health care bill here for you. I think Danette may be the only one who's read it in this room. We'll pass that around later, maybe raffle it, Bruce, if you want to raffle that off. The bottom line is you are all folks, for the most part, who run businesses, you run organizations, you're innovators, you're entrepreneurs, you employ people, you play a key role in our community to keep our economy going. And you're trying to get a feel for what the future is going to be like so you can continue to plan your strategy to do those things. And of course, the decisions by the government, federal or state or local, play a major role in what those decisions are going to be and how you plan. And if you go back, well, first of all, I'll just mention, before I mention some of these specific issues like health care, energy legislation, or some other issues, I want to give you a general perspective from my perspective of what has been happening in Washington these days. If you go back and you look over the last 20 years, you're no doubt familiar with the concept of speculative bubbles, right? If you go back and look in the 80s, we had the savings and loan bubble. If you go back to the 90s, we had the dot-com bubble. Over the last decade, we had the housing bubble and the mortgage-backed securities bubble, which were contributors, of course, in part of the financial challenges that have occurred recently. And bubbles occur when the values get inflated beyond reasonable, substantial underlying basis. And the problem is the bubbles always burst, right? They always burst, and it has an effect, some sort of a ripple effect on the rest of the economy that everyone else feels in some capacity. And right now in America, in this country, it kind of leads in a little bit of the healthcare debate because of the actions, I think, of the folks that are running Washington right now. Over the past several years, we are developing a very serious financial federal spending bubble. And that is occurring. And we are still mired right now in a period of massive overselling, massive overpromising, overspending certainly. And unfortunately, the American people have been promised right now a recovery that has not yet arrived in terms of economic recovery, at least not where it matters most, and that's in the unemployment office. In fact, many economists still predict even a couple of years from now, we very well may be at a national 10% unemployment rate, which is high. In Minnesota, we are a little bit better, about 7.4, 7.5%. But nationally, it's still almost 10%, 9.7%. And economists think that's going to continue. And maybe the most dangerous thing about the federal spending bubble is that it is filled with a stunning amount of debt, a huge amount of debt. And last year, the federal government ran a $1.4 trillion deficit. You know, it's 12 zeros. It's a huge amount of money. The first $1 trillion deficit the country has ever had. It was our highest ever. The national debt has gone up to about $12.5 trillion right now. So it's approximately $39,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States, a significant amount of money. And our debt and our deficits have even reached the levels now of even making the nations that lend us money or purchase our debt nervous. China, Saudi Arabia, other countries that purchase debt. And this was evident actually just 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. You probably saw or heard that there was a lackluster interest at the Treasury Department when public debt was sold. 2-year notes, 5-year notes, and 7-year notes that were sold a couple of weeks ago as a part of the debt sales going on. There was a very lackluster interest, and that caused a little bit of concern for a lot of folks that are saying, well, maybe by the end of the year, potentially we're going to be more like Greece and the challenging situation they have in terms of their public debt and their spending obligations. Moody's is saying the United States may not have a AAA bond rating in the near future. We saw for the first time where corporate debt that has been auctioned or sold has actually had a lower interest rate than Treasury notes, which means corporate bonds are safer investments, viewed as a safer investment than buying a U.S.-backed security Treasury. And I think that should be of concern. And what's really scary is that the bubble, I think, that is coming right now is continuing to get bigger. And so as Congress recently had the discussion about raising the debt ceiling to $14 trillion, just a little over a month, or 2 months ago now, we raised the debt ceiling to $14 trillion. And that's even without the stimulus bill that passed a year ago that had a lot of spending, $787 billion. Congress has embarked along double-digit spending increases just in regular domestic discretionary spending. And of course, these are challenging times, and the economy needs a little oomph, if you will, and I don't think the stimulus that was provided has been in the right direction in terms of private job growth. And I'm concerned about the debt because in 3.5 years, we as a country will be spending $1 billion per day just to pay the interest on the national debt, just $1 billion a day just to pay the interest. And the national debt will double in 5 years under the budget that just passed last year with Speaker Pelosi. 5 years it'll double, and it'll triple in 10 years. And to put that in perspective, and I was a critic of Republicans when I didn't think they were being fiscally responsible, but if you go back to the beginning of the history of the country, to when George Washington was president, you go all the way through the Civil War, through World War I, World War II, all the way through George W. Bush. Under the budget that we passed, we will borrow more as a country and as a nation in 4 years now than we will under the rest of the history of the country combined. And so that's really our challenge, is how do you change the trajectory like this and bring it back down like this so we can focus on other priorities. And I'll tell you one thing, the business owners I talked to, and I went out and toured Cast Screw recently, and I visited with many small businesses, some of you even in this room, they don't get an automatic credit limit every time they need a little more resources to hire someone or get through some tough times. They've been squeezing themselves and adjusting, much like families have had to do. And when their expenses exceed the revenues, they make adjustments accordingly. And the federal government has not been doing that. And I think we need to do that and make some tough choices to get our budgets under control.